3-day humanitarian ceasefire begins in Gaza after weeks of fighting and more than 1,500 deaths. A humanitarian ceasefire began Friday between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Announced Thursday by UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, the halt to hostilities is planned to last for 72 hours, and provide an opportunity to seek a more lasting solution to the conflict. During this time, the forces on the ground will remain in place, a joint statement by the United Nations and United States said. There were no immediate reports of fighting after the truce came into effect at 8 a.m. Friday in Gaza 1 a.m. About an hour into the pause, the Israel Defense Forces said no rockets had been fired from Gaza toward Israel. Officials from Israel and Hamas had said in text messages that they accepted the ceasefire, which is meant to allow humanitarian aid to reach civilians in Gaza caught up in the violence. Many Gaza residents have seen their neighborhoods hit hard and loved ones killed or wounded since Israel began Operation Protective Edge against Hamas on July 8. Around 500,000 people in the small, impoverished territory have been displaced by the conflict, according to the United Nations. That's about 14% of Gaza's population of 1.8 million. The aid during the ceasefire will include food, care for the injured and burial of the dead. Under the truce, Israeli and Palestinian officials are expected to meet in Cairo to try to reach a durable ceasefire, the UN and U.S. statement said. The parties will be able to raise issues of concern in these negotiations. It remains to be seen whether the two sides, which are bitterly opposed on key issues, will be able to reach a breakthrough. Past ceasefire attempts in the conflict have failed to take hold or lasted only briefly. Hamas has said it wants an end to Israel's blockade on Gaza, which restricts the movement of goods and people. It also wants the release of prisoners detained by the Israelis. Israel, meanwhile, says it is aiming for the demilitarization of Hamas-controlled Gaza, removing the threat that militant weapons pose to Israeli civilians. Before the ceasefire plan was announced, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had said Israeli troops would continue destroying Hamas' network of tunnels that run under the border into Israel with or without a truce. While neither side will advance, Israel will be able to continue its defensive operations for those tunnels that are behind its lines, Kerry explained.